here's to the kids who make good choices. And here's to the kids who take risk. And here's to the kids who make a difference. Who are you? Every day, we are forced to make different kinds of decisions. And a lot of the times, those decisions can be a bit mundane and not carry any kind of weight whatsoever. But every now and again, there's a decision that can change our life from what it is right now. Now, that change is called difference, and that's where we need to find ourselves. So, I knew a kid once, and he hated reading, and he told me all the time how much he hated reading. And I, being his tutor, I was determined to get this kid to love reading as much as I did. But then I had a thought. I thought, maybe he doesn't think he's very good at it. So think about yourselves in sports and board games and video games. If you're not very good at something, do you keep doing it? And that's the question I'm dealing with. That's my dilemma. Do I buy into his hatred, or do I try? And if you run into anyone who knows me, you'll figure out pretty fast that giving up is not something that's in my vocabulary. So I take this kid to the library, and we are scouring the shelves, and we're looking, and I cannot find anything that appeals to him. Now, out of all the books in the library, he does not like a single one. And so I'm getting a little discouraged, but I'm not giving up. And so I finally asked the kid, what do you like to read? Like, what do you want to read? And he tells me, and I'm like, well, is that all I have to do is ask? And so he gives me 3 criteria. And the first thing is, he does not like books where the main character is a female. And I'm like, well, there goes the Hunger Games. And then he says, I don't like magic. And I'm like, well, Harry Potter's 8 books, man. Like you're killing me. And so he gives me his last criteria. He says, I love zombies. And I'm like, zombies? So I'm like, what kind of book am I going to find in a middle school library about zombies? Well, it turns out there isn't any. So, but I looked, and I couldn't find anything. And so at this point, the school year is coming to a close, and I got to figure out, what I'm going to do next year. And I'm like, well, maybe I can just get a different kid next year and just, don't deal with this. And then his teacher comes to me, and she says, I want you to work with him again. And I'm like, no, please don't, anybody else. Really? But then, I agree to do it. So I have an entire summer ahead of me. I can figure something out. So I'm trying to figure out how I can satisfy this kid in the sense that he'll read and satisfy myself, and not have giving up. So I get this bright idea. Since I can't find a book that he'll read, I'll write him one. And I learned that when you allow your imagination to come to life, you are opening the door to making a difference in the world. So I sat down and I started writing a book. And I did it. And now, this was no easy task for me. I mean, this wasn't simple. I would say about 5 chapters in, at about 4,000 words apiece, my computer was stolen. Like, tragedy has struck. Like, this is a disaster. But it was in that happening that I realized what I was doing, and I came to this revelation. Why not write his story instead of just write a story? And so I did. So I fashioned the characteristics and traits of the main character around this kid. And I wanted him to have a more well-rounded perspective, so I included bits and pieces of myself. And I needed him to have people to count on, so I fashioned the other characters in the book around people from his life as well as my own. And I needed to give him something to fight for. I needed to give him a reason to fight. So I gave him 2 antagonists. And these 2 antagonists represent the things that he can clearly see in front of him and the things that he'll have to plan for. And so I fashioned the community that this book takes place in around his own community. And I wanted the inner strength that I know he to possess to be vibrant in this book. So I made his character the ability to face whatever obstacle came before him. And it took me 3 months, but I'd finally done it. I had written this book. Well, school starts up, and I'm ready to show him what's happened, and I find out that he has transferred to a different school. Yeah, that's what I said. And so I'm not sure what he was up to or what he'd been doing, but somehow he got a message to me, and it was as simple as thanks. And I realized what I was doing and why I'd done it in that moment. You see, making a difference doesn't mean doing something drastic or going on some grand scale. It can be simply being a positive beacon in someone else's life. And I've done that through all the things that I've done, youth conventions and summer camps and lock-ins and all kinds of things. I've even done it while I was studying abroad in Italy. And you need a starting point. Once you have a starting point, then you can work from there. And think about your school, your home, your community. Work from there. Well, I'm sure you're wondering where risks compute into this. Very simple. Risks are all around us. And I took a risk in writing this book, and my boss took a risk in giving me this job. And they're everywhere, so I wrote them in this book. But we can overcome these risks, and not by avoiding them, by stepping out into the unknown, stepping out into uncertainty, hoping for whatever may happen. So I think the most important thing to remember is that whatever we do it with the intention of helping the people around us. Well, the kids at the school, they come up to me still with the things they're writing. And I can just tell by what they write that they want to be authors and singers and dancers and adventurers and heroes and artists. And it makes me proud. I'm going to leave you with this quote from T.E. Lawrence. Those who dream by day in the dusty recesses of their minds wake in the day to find that it was vanity. But the dreamers of the day are dangerous men, for they can act their dream with open eyes and make it possible. So, here's to the kids. Here's to the kids who make good choices. And here's to the kids who take a risk. And here's to the kids who make a difference. Who are you? Thank you.